Hey everybody, Lead Speed here. Alright, it's showtime. Well, not really, but it's finally that time, I guess, where I show my take, at least my take, not anybody else's but my own, take on the Atlantean Mermail deck profile. Now, for the record, this is not a YCS deck profile or a regional deck profile or nothing like that, So, I mean, if you're looking for those, this is not the channel to go to. That's kind of sad, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of people who do that anyways, so it's like, why should I cover that kind of stuff when other people have more views and could do that stuff way better than I ever could? So, yeah, anyways, what I wanted to do with this take on the Mermail deck profile was I wanted to use more Mermail monsters. More, I mean, like Abyssland and Abyss Sturge and the new guy and then this guy, you know. Some of the uncommon stuff that I think are pretty decent if played correctly. So, yeah, I mean, people kind of already know how the deck works, but I'll explain why I'm using some of the less common Mermail choices and whatever, and then some I didn't even bother running because I don't think like they're really all that abusable or anything. Like, I have the whole list over here. So, anyways, let's begin. First, we have Moonlit Glacie, the Elemental Lord. We have two Deep Sea Divas. Now we have the Atlantean monsters over here. The main guys you're probably going to be pitching, and that's going to be doing all the searching, destroying, everything like that. So you have Atlantean Heavy Infantry, Atlantean Marksmen, and then Atlantean Dragoons. We're running 2, 3, and 3. It seems pretty normal, and honestly, that's pretty much the standard, and I think it works for me too. Now, for these mermaids, mermen, and mermonsters wearing armor and shit, we have 3 copies of Mermail Abyssland. We have 2 copies of Mermail Abyssgoon. Yeah. 2 copies of Mermail Abyss Spike. 1 Mermail Abyss Sturge. The new guy, as I said, Mermail Abyssteus. I think it's Abyssteus, but I probably said it wrong in the other videos. And 2 Mermail Abyss Megalos. And 1 Mermail Abyss Lead. And then we have the 1 random Gores because we don't run that much back row, and you know, he's more alive than you think. Especially if I choose not to do anything first turn and I happen to have him in my hand, you know, maybe just to scout what my opponent wants to do. If they want to try to OTK, then I can just drop Gores and their OTK is stopped, and then I can proceed to do my own OTK, I guess, if possible. Then for the spells, we have 2 Salvage, Heavy Storm, Dark Hole, Monster Reborn, so we have the Holy Trinity. Double Mystical Space Typhoon, I feel like 3 is way too much. I mean, you can always side the 3rd one. And 1 Avarice. For the traps, we run 7. We have 2 Torrential Tributes, 2 Compulsory Evacuation Devices, and 3 Abyss Spheres. Now, the Compulsory Evacuation Device is kind of like a little tech I'm running in the deck. Mainly to, if I'm going to swing for game, I can kind of use this to get a monster that's in the way, out of the way, and if I'm summoning my Abyss Megalo, I can protect it from Bottomless, or if I want to reuse the effects of my Abyss Spike or something like that, then I can do that. So that's just kind of why I'm running that. Now, extra deck, it's kind of self-explanatory, barring a few things. Why, you know, I'll explain why I'm using those. So for the Synchros, we got Armory Arm, Catastor, Deloran, Tiger King of the Ice Barrier, Gungnir Dragon of the Ice Barrier, Black Rose Dragon, Stardust Dragon, and then Scrap Dragon. Then we have the black cards. The Mermail Abyss Gaios, Mermail Abyss Stride, Gotcha Kentetsu, Wind Up Zen Mains, number 17 Leviathan Dragon, Abyss Dweller, Bahamut Shock, and number 11 Big Eye. I'll explain why I'm using these 3 over here. First, this guy though, Mermail Abyss Gaios. Now, he does take 2 level 7 water monsters, so you can't just go use Gores and like your Megalo. You have to actually use 2 waters. Now, for this deck, I kind of wanted to focus on doing that kind of thing anyways, and that's kind of another reason why I use Abyssgoon in this deck, because there are going to be times where your hand gets all screwed up, but you can make a rank 7 monster. For example, if you go use Abyss Megalo's in-hand effect, let's say you discard Abyss Lead in your hand to the graveyard, as well as 1 Mermail Abyssgoon. You summon Megalo, and then when you special summon him this way, you get an Abyss spell tracker from your deck to your hand. So you get Sphere, and then you use Abyssgoon's effect to bring back the Abyss Lead that you tossed along with her. So she pretty much is the reviver, if you will. She revives the Mermails, whereas, you know, Abyssland recruits. And then Abyssland also kind of revives, but it's mainly a level 3 or lower Mermail, so she gets the other level 3 ones back. So that's kind of how they work. And of course, these guys, you're mainly going to be using them to discard your Atlanteans, get their effects, as well as get like either a search or a salvage type effect in re-adding water monsters from the graveyard. And you can actually combo it with Abyssgoon to where if you have something like Abyss Spike in your graveyard, let's say, you'd summon this guy, toss something like Marksman to the graveyard. Well, not Marksman. Let's say you toss Abyssgoon to the graveyard to get back Heavy Infantry to your hand. Then Abyssgoon's effect, you bring back Abyss Spike, then use his effect, toss the Heavy Infantry that you just got back with Abyss Scourge, toss him, and then get another search. You can search for Abyssgoon, or you can search for Marksman, or you can search for Lind. So there's quite a bit you could do with this deck, and honestly, I kind of wanted to focus on using cards like Abyssgoon because she just allows me to do so much, even when my hand's all screwed up. And then this guy, this is a guy I was kind of trying out. I don't know if I want to maybe cut him down. I was running 1 and I'm running 2 now, but I don't know if I want to maybe cut him down to 1, but I'm not sure yet. But I mean, unlike Megalo and Lead, you're only needing to toss 1 water monster, but when you do summon them this way, you can add a Mermail to your hand. And I'm mainly going to be searching for her, or if I already have her in my hand, I'll either get Abyss Spike or Abyss Scourge, or if I don't have anything decent, I'll get Abyssland, because I may need that recruiting power. So, I mean, your options vary from here to there, and plus it's another level 7 Mermail monster that you can just slap on the field. And when you have something like Abyss Megalo in the graveyard or Abyss Lead, and you just happen to toss her to the graveyard for the cost of special summoning this guy from your hand, you can just go right for your Mermail Abyss Giles play, or your Big Eye play, or anything like that. So I kind of wanted to focus more on that and not rely too much on the Genix Undyne engine, and I'll talk a bit about why I didn't want to do that and stuff. So, as far as for Abyss Giles himself, he's more like a stun kind of card, whereas Big Eye would just take a monster and you could do whatever you want with it. You can attack with it, but you know, you can't attack with Big Eye. But this guy's more like a stun card, since you can negate the effects of every face-up monster the opponent controls that have less attack points until the end phase, and you can do it on either turn. So if they summon like a Junk Synchron, they're trying to make a big play, you can just go, okay, I activate his effect, negate it, and now you got a weak little monster who can't do anything, and unless they got another follow play, they're kind of screwed. So, I mean, it's not terrible, but it's probably not something you're going to be running unless you can consistently bring out your level 7 Mermail monsters, and Abyssgoon does help with that, as well as using Abyss Sphere, because Abyss Sphere just allows you to just summon out a Mermail from your deck. Like, if you already have something like Mermail Abyss Megalo already on the field, you can just use Abyss Sphere, get out Lead, and then you can make Abyss Giles or Big Eye. So, I mean, you're not gonna always summon Lind off Abyss Sphere, but that's mainly your target. Although I could be wrong in that you have to run as many Linds as you have Spheres. Because if you think about it, like, if you have Lind and Sphere in your hand, you're not going to want to set both. It's kind of risky, because if your opponent does use MST targeting your Abyss Sphere that's face down, and you activate it and you bring out Abyss Lind, she dies because Sphere gets blown up by MST, you get a monster, but here's the problem. What if they go and summon a monster to just attack the other Lind that you set? Then you're kind of screwed, because her effect can't go off, because you can only use 1 Mermail Abyss Lind effect per turn. So yeah, that kind of sucks, but I may cut that down to 2, but I don't know if I will or not. And then Abyss Lead, I needed like a big monster that can run over problem cards like Xi'an or Lagia, something like that. I just needed a monster that can run over a lot of other monsters that I could just slap out from the deck with Abyss Sphere, or that I could summon with Abyssland or Abyssgoon, depending on where he is. And I mean, there are a few times where I use this effect to summon him from the hand, but not often enough. Mainly because since it costs 3, that's a bit more of a cost, and the problem with using him as opposed to Abyss Megalo. One, it's easier to summon Megalo and like Abyss, but you have to have already have an Abyss spell trap in your graveyard already. So chances are you may have already summoned a Megalo or something like that, and then you might not be able to fulfill the requirements to do a special summon, and sometimes that's why he could be dead in the hand. But that's why I'm using cards like Abyss, because I can get rid of him from my hand, and then I can get something like Abyss Goon to my hand, and then use something like Abyss Spike, toss her to the graveyard, get a search, and then bring back the lead that I tossed. So it does fix that little problem, but you will run into that issue no matter what, and that's why I'm only running one of this guy for now. And let's see, what else do I want to talk about? Mermail Abyss Strike. Now, this, along with Bahamut Shark, I'm mainly using Bahamut Shark for that. Normally it takes 3 level 3 monsters, and technically you could do that. If you happen to have something like these on the field, you can make it with 3, but it's probably not worth the investment half the time. And I mean, you're just using her to wall up anyways and get her effect when she gets destroyed, because you can bring back any Mermail. So if they go Dark Hole, you can bring back Abyssland, and then when they destroy her, you get a Mermail from your deck. So it's like you have quite a healthy amount of defense as well as offense. And honestly, it's almost like when I play Gustos, where you always have constant field presence and special summoning power and recycling, although you mainly recycle off of Pot of Avarice or Salvage. So, and another target you can use with Bahamut Shark is this guy. And recently, I didn't even know he was on Dueling Network. I know he's on a YGO Pro or Dev Pro or whatever you call it, and I did use him on there. This guy's kind of cool because even when he's special summoned by the effect of Bahamut Shark, because you can do that, you could still activate his initial effect and attach a level 3 water monster. So you can attach something like Marksman to him, and then you can detach a material to target a face-up water monster, and then it can attack your opponent directly, but the other monsters you control cannot attack. So potentially, what you're telling me is I get to go detach a Marksman, blow up a back row because of Marksman's effect to blow up set cards when, sent to the grave to activate a water monster's effect. So I get to blow up a set card, and I get to have a Mermail Abyss Megalo with 2400 attack points attack my opponent directly 2 times for free? Are you serious? And because Bahamut Shark just slaps him off on the deck, I mean, you can just summon Megalo right afterwards and just slam ahead. So it's like, oh my goodness. Just, the deck's ridiculous. I mean, even when I'm not using the standard build with its running Genix Undyne, it can still some pretty stupid plays. It's just not going to be relying on Genix Undyne and Controller. Now, people are going to wonder, well, what do I have against Controller and Undyne? Well, just one thing. Well, maybe a couple of things, but here's the main thing. But first, I want to say that Genix Undyne is an amazing card. I mean, just being able to tutor any Atlantean in your deck for the cost just to do anything is nice. You don't even have to draw the Atlantean monster. You just have to have this in your hand and controllers in your deck. Now, this also means you have to run Controller. Like, you cannot use Genix Undyne's effect if you do not legitimately have a Genix Controller anywhere in your deck. So, I mean, yeah, there are cards like Allure Darkness, but honestly, I don't like playing with cards that, like, I have to run other cards just to make usable. Like, I have to run Allure Darkness, I have to use Raigeki Break, I have to use stuff like that. Whereas Genix Undyne, it's great. It could definitely be great, and I definitely recommend it if you're definitely playing it on a more competitive level, just because you don't want to use up too much of your hand. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to use more Mermails and try them out and see where I can go with it. And the deck can always change. I may take out one Lind, or I may just take out Abyss Lead altogether, or I may put back Abyssdine. And I mean, these are just some other cards that you can run, and these were cards I used to run in the deck, but I took them out because I hadn't been using them as much. But that could change in the future. I may put them back, and like cards like this guy and this guy I gotta try out. And yeah, there's just so much stuff to try out later on. And if you have any questions about the deck profile, any of the combos I can do, anything else, if you want to battle me with it or something, just ask me on DN or sometime, and we can have at it. So yeah, I'll see you guys later. Peace.